Red Scare. Accusations of Chinese interference abound in the final days of election campaigning. Are Taiwanese workers seeing their right to vote put at risk? Struggling to make ends meet, Taiwan's national pension comes under fire. Plus, high mountain drama, the rescue teams helping to save lives on Taiwan's peaks. Good evening and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Eric Gao. With just 9 days to go before the vote, Taiwan's presidential candidates are fighting over election interference by China, sparking questions about where their loyalties lie. Tiffany Wong brings us the latest from the campaign trail.
Painting each other red. Taiwan's three presidential candidates are butting heads on one of the most contentious topics, election interference from China, and what that might mean for Taiwan's future. At their individual rallies this week, two of the candidates took aim at the Kuomintang's Hou You-yi, whose party typically promotes more friendly relations with Beijing, calling him a communist. Lai Ching-te of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party and current vice president of Taiwan said the election was a vote between giving in to Chinese authoritarianism and protecting Taiwan's democratic system.
要粉碎中国介入这场选举最好的手段就是中国支持谁，这个人绝对不能够让他当选，否则的话，台湾的民主就荡然无存。我们的选总统就好像在选特首一般。
From a motorcade rally, former Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je of the Taiwan People's Party also accused the KMT's Ho of making deals with China.
我只是问他说，为什么中共对你这么好，还要替你做假民调，还把这民调做那种高的假民调，奇怪，为什么会整个台商系统在替你募款？我非常清楚嘛，那个国台办没有点头同意，大陆台商哪里敢动？
But during his own motorcade rally, Ho defended himself and criticized the DPP for starting a red scare.
我反对境外介入台湾民主自由的选举，但是民进党不要常常制造大家的恐慌，尤其制造不实的消息，也不要去抹红别人。
With the election just over a week away, authorities say campaigns will be tightly monitored for signs of foreign interference, and voters will be paying close attention too, as they consider who they think can best manage Taiwan's relations with China and protect their country's interests. Dolphine Chen and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
And as Taiwan prepares to go to the polls, labor groups are warning employers not to stop their workers from exercising their democratic rights and to pay them accordingly. Reese Ayers explains.
Voting for Taiwan's next national leaders. It's a right a huge number of Taiwanese people take very seriously. But what happens when employees need to work on election day? Taiwan's Labor Standards Act designates election day as a holiday. That means workers are entitled to extra pay if they clock in, though employers must let workers go out to vote if they want to. Voters will go to the polls on a Saturday this year, which, depending on what kind of job you do, may or may not be a work day. According to the Labour Ministry, if election day falls on an employee's working day, employers must pay double wages for every hour worked, except for the hours the employees take to go and vote. They'll get paid their usual rate for that time. If election day is on a rest day, employers must pay workers according to the usual overtime rules laid out in the Labour Standards Act. Employees will get an extra third on top of their hourly rate for the first 2 hours, and an extra 2/3 for any hours worked after that. The rules are a little complicated, enough to cause problems for one supermarket in New Taipei, where an employee asked for leave on election day. The company later asked the worker to take unpaid personal leave and was fined over $1,200.
事假是可以扣薪水的，可是其实请事假不应该在那一天出现请事假这个情况，请特休也一样，因为他那一天就是不用上班的，就根本就不需要再请特休或者请事假。
After the incident, a representative from a labor group sent a stern warning to companies.
台湾已经民主化了，而且那么多次的投票了，所以雇主不应该以身试法，而且应该尊重每一个劳工他投票的这样的权利。
With just over a week until Election Day, authorities and labour groups are hoping that companies can help uphold their employees' basic right to vote. Justin Wu and Rees for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan says it will share its experiences dealing with China's attempts to interfere in its elections. Foreign Minister Joseph Wu says China has been making unprecedented efforts to meddle in Taiwan's democratic process. In an article for British media outlet The Economist, he says this includes military and economic pressure, with China saying Taiwan's upcoming elections are a choice between war and peace. Wu said Beijing is trying to influence swing voters. He says Taiwan will publish its analysis of Chinese interference after the election to help other countries combat authoritarian powers. Now, with the presidential election right around the corner, Taiwan-China relations are in the spotlight. To better understand what voters think about the cross-strait situation, TaiwanPlus brings you the voice of the people.
和谐，我们要的和谐，再来就是和平，不要有战争，在我们的期望，对这个这次的选举。
I always think that the situation has been like this for decades, right? So the thing we have to do is to be confident, to do whatever we have been doing and try to make it more solid. For example, our military, national defense, and also economy. Like you can see that whatever we have been doing has been great.
其实中国跟我们一样啦，我们华人都是喜欢和平、安定、稳定。所以我觉得中共它的任何动作对我们台湾是没有影响，而且我也不觉得说这未来50年会有什么独立啦、统一这些问题，我觉得都不存在。
中国的因素也会多少会，我也是觉得是要和平，就是不要发生战争了。对我们台湾的未来就是不希望有战争的风险了，希望看哪一组候选人发生战争的风险会比较小一点的啦。
两岸的情形就已经是存在一个很久的既定议题了，就是本来就是应该是执政政府应该去协调这个部分，所以我觉得不管是哪一任政府上任，这件事情都应该是朝一个稳定、安全，然后国家经济发展都可以双向发展的情况下去进行的。
两岸关系好像数十年来都比较维持现状，所以这点我倒不怕，因为这次选完就有什么重大的改变。
China has wrapped up patrols in the South China Sea just days after appointing a new defense minister. These patrols took place while U.S. and Philippine forces carried out their own drills nearby. They follow the recent appointment of Admiral Dong Jun as China's defense minister. Dong is the first Navy serviceman to lead the country's military. His appointment comes as China steps up its naval activity in the South China Sea and in waters around Taiwan. To learn more about Dong's appointment as China's new defense minister, our reporter Sam Hui spoke with Lin Yingyou, an assistant professor at Tamkang University.
Why did China pick Dong Jun, a Navy officer, to be its defense minister?
他过去曾经有在3大舰队，就是北海、东海、南海服役的经验。那特别是在南部战区的时候，他或许有去参与到跟美国的战区级对话，以及我们要注意的是，他曾经去参加过跟俄罗斯的2015年海上联合的一个演习，然后还有去参加过2020年海上卫士的一个跟巴基斯坦的一个演习。所以其实这个代表的是他有相当丰富的外事交流经验跟外军交流经验。
Will this have any effect on U.S.-China efforts to restart military-to-military communications?
董军跟美国 Austin 这边的一个对话跟会面是有机会的，但是我们千万要记得的就是，今天董军这一个职务其实他并没有办法去指挥解放军，代表的是他在职权上面跟 Austin 是完全不一样平等的。所以其实即便今天美中恢复了这个对话，战略上面的一个对话，但是是不是能够有效的去恢复到双边的军事沟通跟交流，我个人认为这是打上一个问号。
What significance does Dong's appointment have for Taiwan?
对台湾来说的话，其实毕竟今天中国的国防部长他只是一个军事外交的窗口，他并不会去实际的指挥作战。 那至于说他会不会说换上海军就是针对台湾，我个人认为这样子的假设太过于偏颇。因此，董军的撤换与否，是否会对台湾直接造成立即的安危跟影响，我个人认为这一点的机会是不大的。
That was Liying Yo from Taipei University speaking to our reporter Sam Hui. Japanese authorities say one of the planes that collided at a Tokyo airport was not cleared for takeoff. A Japan Airlines Airbus hit a smaller Coast Guard plane on Tuesday. All 379 people aboard the Airbus evacuated safely, but 5 people on the Coast Guard plane died. The Coast Guard were part of rescue efforts after a devastating magnitude 7.6 earthquake hit western Japan. Japan Airlines estimates that it will lose over $100 million in operating costs from the collision, which will be covered by insurance. Coming up, how fingerprints could be used to detect signs of a deadly disease.
Taiwan votes for a future after President Tsai.
A new leader to manage ties with Washington and Beijing.
And find balance in a volatile region. In an election that could reshape our world.
TaiwanPlus, your guide in uncertain times.
Brought the two parties bringing you analysis from Taiwan and abroad.
Immediate reactions as the results roll in.
And a deep dive into Taiwan's future.
Join us on election night for our live specials. Taiwan Talks, Taiwan Votes, and Taiwan Connects. Only on TaiwanPlus.
For more stories here in Timor-Leste and around the world, visit TaiwanPlus.com.
Start your weekend with a cup of coffee and a moment to reflect on what happened this week.
Hello and welcome.
We've got you covered, from defense and politics to high tech and the arts.
Not just to Taiwan, the whole world is watching.
You make the coffee,
we make the news.
Here's what happened on Taiwan Plus.
Welcome back. You're watching Taiwan Plus News. Japanese rescuers are racing to find survivors of an earthquake that shook the country's west. Their work comes amid forecasts of heavy rain and low temperatures. The 7.6 magnitude quake hit the country on New Year's Day, killing 81 people and triggering tsunami warnings, fires, and aftershocks. Japan's government says more than 31,000 people are currently in shelters, and tens of thousands of homes have been destroyed. Rescue efforts are focused on the western coastal cities of Ishikawa Prefecture. To find out more about how the region copes with earthquakes, Sally Jensen spoke to earthquake expert Zoran Wu from Taiwan's National Central University.
The aftermath of Japan's recent earthquake has been fairly minimal, and it's had experts saying that it demonstrates Japan's resilience. Would Taiwan survive a similar scale tremor?
We have a notorious earthquake. We call it GG earthquake. And the earthquake magnitude was 7.4. And this time, the Japan earthquake was 7.6. So we know that the GG earthquake actually damaged Taiwan a lot, and more than 2,000 people died in that event. But I have to say, currently, the law, the regulation says that the new buildings has to satisfy the new regulation, which has to can be survived under like a GG earthquake, which is very close to Japan earthquake. So I think if the earthquake happened in Taiwan, basically the damage will be much limited.
Is it true that earthquakes happen in cycles? And when is Taiwan due for another major earthquake?
I used to use two hands. Okay, if one tectonic submerged to the other one, then we can feel that for this one, we can feel like there's that kind of friction, vibration. This vibration has a frequency. Then we can picture that this earthquake also has a frequency. So based on the popular knowledge about the return period, like Japan, that kind of earthquake, the return period will be in between 20 to 40 years.
Why wasn't there a tsunami as big as originally reported? Does Taiwan also get tsunamis, and how can people stay safe?
Taiwan does have tsunamis. Just recently, we don't have so many large tsunamis. We will try to use the worst case scenario to generate the tsunami scenario. So that's why for this kind of short period of tsunami early warning, usually the warning height of tsunami height will be bigger than the real observation tsunami. So that's why Japan says 5 meters, but actually they only have about 1 meter. So I would say if really you got the tsunami warning, then please just go to the roof of your building. The roof might be the 3rd floor, might be the 4th floor, or even higher. Then you'll be safe.
That was earthquake expert Zoran Wu speaking with Sally Jensen. Over 80 people were killed in a twin bombing in Iran during a ceremony to commemorate a slain general. The blast injured hundreds visiting the burial site of Qasem Soleimani, who was killed in a U.S. drone strike 4 years ago. Iranian officials are calling it a terror attack. No group has claimed responsibility for the bombings, but Iran's president took aim at Israel, saying it will pay a heavy price. Iran backs several militant groups that have targeted Israel during its assault on Gaza. Another Israeli hostage in Gaza has been declared dead. The Israeli military pronounced that Sahar Baruch died during rescue efforts last month, but they say they don't know if he was killed by his captors or by Israeli fire. Baruch was one of the 240 people taken hostage by Hamas militants on October 7th. More than 100 hostages have been released, and 23 have been declared dead by Israel's military. At least 3 of them were killed by Israeli forces in mid-December. Gaza has been under bombardment for nearly 3 months, with over 20,000 people reported killed. Ukraine and Russia have swapped more than 470 prisoners. The two countries exchanged prisoners in the biggest single swap of captives since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, under a deal mediated by the United Arab Emirates. Ukraine confirmed 230 soldiers and civilians were released, while Russia said 248 of its soldiers were returned. Rescue workers here in Taiwan are working to save lives amid a rising rate of accidents in the country's mountains. Irene Lin looks at how long distances and organizational problems impact their response time.
Traveling into the wilderness to save lives. Mountain rescue teams in Taiwan's central and eastern counties are used to responding to emergencies in demanding conditions.
因为大部分的山友都会往花莲的地方来做一个行进的一个路线，所以常常在这个路径里面发生意外。
To access mountains in central Taiwan, rescue teams from Hualien County on the east coast often use trailheads in neighboring Nantou County. The problem is, it can take as much as 7 hours to drive to where they're going, and to go on foot is not a viable option when lives are on the line.
如果说我们直接由县内走路上能高越岭的话，可能耗费的时间可能要4-5天以上。
Government figures say mountain rescue calls have risen in the past decade, peaking at 454 in 2020. Almost all the people who called for help were found. But with the rising number of incidents, rescuers say they're having trouble responding quickly, and they need help from neighboring counties.
可以一下子都透过他们的指挥中心，可不可以请你们调派相关人员来做支援？所以机制都存在的。
As Taiwan opens up more trails to hikers, the country's rescue workers continue to stay alert and ready, while hoping fewer people need their services. Patrick Chen and Irene Lin for TaiwanPlus.
$150. That's how much Taiwan's national pension system guarantees people per month once they hit age 65. But for elderly people who depend on this money for their livelihood, it's not enough to meet even their basic needs. Leslie Liao has more.
Mr. Chen is in his 70s and battling cancer. He not only has to shoulder hefty medical expenses, but he's on the hook for his day-to-day spending. For him, basic human needs like safety are a luxury. There's a gas canister right in the middle of his living room, which doubles as a kitchen. Mr. Chen is one of 45,000 low-income elderly people in Taiwan who depend solely on the country's national pension for survival. Every month, the government pays out roughly $150 to him, which isn't even enough to cover his monthly rent. Mr. Chen constantly needs to look for roommates to make his living expenses more manageable. Over in northern Taiwan's Taoyuan City, Ms. Chiu lives in similar circumstances. Though she has family, she can't bring herself to ask for help. Often, she has to rely on the kindness of others.
我儿子他自己也没有很好过啊，所以我也不敢一直伸手啊，对不对？啊，我们能过就过了。
Like Mr. Chen, Ms. Chiu depends completely on Taiwan's national pension for income. Though it helps, it certainly isn't enough. And she's grown disheartened with the program that was once supposed to be her social safety net.
我也不敢祈求说政府能够帮我多少。
In 2008, Taiwan passed a law establishing the national pension. This program offers unemployed people who are at least 25 years old to buy into a policy that guarantees them payments after they hit age 65. The program was originally established with people who do not benefit off Taiwan's other public sector or labor insurance programs in mind. But the program faces several issues. In 2023, nearly 3 million people were part of the national pension, but less than half of people it covered could pay the premium. Some of those covered are low-income households who are barely scraping by and can't afford to shell out for the program. Social workers like Lin Wanzhen, who works for the pension program, are all too familiar with this issue.
一般的话，原则上都是无理缴纳的比较多。
Others are concerned that the pension just isn't a good use of government resources in the current economy.
现在经济那么差，对不对？嘿啊，你这边也缴，那边也缴，对啊，压力会相对的会更大。可是你要想，你现在缴，以后币会贬值，对啊，那你想你回来的，跟你现在缴的会成正比吗？或许是不太可能。
With money not flowing into the national pension system and payments barely covering the expenses of those who need the help, reform is badly needed. Otherwise, the program's dependents, Taiwan's taxpayers, and government will continue to bear the brunt. Klein Wong and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan is facing a shortage of pediatricians, as doctors who treat children are generally paid less than other specialists. Reese Ayers has this story.
Caring for sick children. It's perhaps one of the most challenging tasks in a demanding profession, but one that, due to the nature of the job, is severely underpaid.
基本上看一个小孩子，他所花的时间跟力气呢，可能是可以看2个内科的病人。是一样的给付的情况之下呢，那小儿科医师得到的给付呢，相对上就会比较低。
Taiwan is expected to become a super-aged society by 2025. And with one of the world's lowest birth rates, healthy children are particularly vital to the country's future. But low wages deter young doctors from pursuing pediatrics. Pediatricians aren't the only medical professionals facing unequal pay. Doctors in Taiwan are paid based on the types of services they provide, with seemingly little correlation between the complexity of a case and how much money they make. A complex operation, such as surgery for a brain hemorrhage, pays just twice as much as a relatively simple ear procedure. Physicians worry this disparity could have disastrous effects. As Taiwan's working age population continues to decline, earnings for medical professionals will need to be better balanced if the sector hopes to attract more talent. Luffy Li and Reese Ayers for TaiwanPlus.
Fingerprints are used for a variety of things, from unlocking your smartphone to helping solve crimes. But recent scientific breakthroughs have added another potential use of these identifying markers to the list: detecting cancer. Leslie Liao's back with more.
One of the best ways to prevent cancer is regular screening. But some detection methods can be complex or invasive. For example, testing for the most common type of cancer, breast cancer, involves mammograms or biopsy. But new research indicates that it may be possible to detect the disease with a single fingerprint. The key? Indicators found in test subjects' sweat.
Sweat contains a lot of different molecules, but what we're interested in is proteins. what we do in effect is detecting those proteins, and the different levels of expression of those proteins, the different patterns of expression tell us whether a patient is has a benign pathology or has early cancer.
Dr. Francesca specializes in forensic science and has been using fingerprints to help with criminal investigations. But her research has shown that these methods can also be used to detect breast cancer. All that's required is a fingerprint and a bit of help from AI.
We use artificial intelligence to make sense of those mass spectrometry data.
Though the research is promising, Francesca still encourages women to opt for traditional mammograms and biopsies, currently the most reliable options. But she's hopeful that breast cancer detection could one day be just a finger swipe away. John Su and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan Central Bank is getting ready to release its Chinese zodiac coins for the Year of the Dragon. The sets of commemorative coins will cost just over $60 and will be available for pre-order next week. 90,000 sets are going to be minted. The dragon is the most powerful sign in the Chinese zodiac and is associated with good luck and prosperity. That means this year's coins are likely to sell out quick. Thanks for tuning in to TaiwanPlus News this evening. If you want more of our reports, follow us on social media or get our app on your phone. Finally, watch as French tightrope walker Nathan Palon conquers a 300-meter walk high above Chile's capital, Santiago. I'm Eric Gao. Take care, and we will see you next time.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please visit us at TaiwanPlus.com.